Welcome to DEEPLIZARD. My name is Chris. In this episode, we're going to see how we can improve our testing framework that we've been working on throughout this course in order to be able to test multiple networks at once. So far in this course, we've been building a testing framework where we've been able to test multiple sets of hyperparameters. And then in a recent video when we were testing a network with batch norm and without batch norm, we introduced the ability to test multiple networks at once. And as some people pointed out in the comments, we had an issue where this actually wouldn't work if we did more than, in that case, we only did one set of parameters. But if we had any parameter where there were multiple values, then the network would be tested more than once and we would run into an issue. So the first thing I want to do is just describe this issue, and then after that, we're going to reproduce the issue, and then we'll see how we can correct the issue, and then that'll enable us to test as many networks as we want. So far, until we did the batch norm versus no batch norm test, we had been instantiating our network like this inside the training loop. And so what was happening is that each time we did a new, or actually not inside the training loop, inside the run loop. So each time we started a new run, we would create a brand new network, which calls the network to get a brand new set of weights. Then, once we wanted to test more than one network, we changed and we started initializing our network outside of the run loop. And we were just accessing our network or our networks from within the networks dictionary. So just jump over to Jupyter Notebook. So here we would initialize our networks outside the run loop. Here, for example, here's one, here's network 2. Then we would put these in a dictionary here. And then inside the run loop, we would access them. So for this batch norm example, everything worked fine because we were only doing one run per network because we didn't specify more than one set of parameters to test. So it was just like this set, we tested these, and then the run would be over and we wouldn't do any additional runs per network. But as soon as we add, say, a second learning rate, for example, then each network will have to do 2 runs, one with the first learning rate and one with the second learning rate. And that is when the problem arises. And as we have said, the reason for this is the fact that if we're inside of a run, we're accessing the network from the networks dictionary. And then when we come in to do a second run, that same network is being accessed again and its weights are not being reset. And so the first thing I want to do before we correct this issue is I just want to reproduce the issue and show you the actual results. So I'm here on DEEPLIZARD.com where I've posted the code, and we're just going to look at this code here, and then we'll jump to Jupyter Notebook to actually show the correction. So right here, this is the old setup where we can reproduce the issue. We started with our seed, we created our network here, and then we have our training set, and then we put the network inside of a dictionary. The next step to actually reproduce the issue or to show the issue, we needed to update our run configurations to have 2 learning rates, but it could be 2 batch sizes or any kind of combination that's going to cause us to do 2 runs per network. Then we simply access the network from the dictionary, and we do our run, we do our training run. And because we have 2 learning rates here, we're going to do 2 runs per network. So we have one network, we're going to do 2 runs. And then if we look at the results down here, this is where we can see the problem. So we see here we have run all the first run. These are run 1. We got up to an accuracy of 0.86. And then when we start our second run, you can see that it's just continuing on from the previous run. We're actually not resetting our weights. And so this is why it's problematic. We're actually not able to test in the way that we want to, which is we want to see like which learning rate was better. So we need to reset the network weights. That way we can actually do a comparison. So let's look at how we can fix this issue. Now, the primary way that we're going to fix the issue is we're going to have to ditch the network, the networks dictionary, and we're going to replace it with a network factory class. So let me show you how we're going to implement this factory and then we will replace the dictionary with the factory. So we're going to have a class that we're going to call network factory. And then inside we're going to have one method called, it's going to be a static method, and it's going to be called getNetwork. And then the way we get a network is we pass in the name of the network. So then we can have as many networks we want with a bunch of if statements. So we can have, if the network name is network, for example, then we can return this network, and then this just continues on infinitely. We can have as many networks by name that we want. And so the factory is going to handle all of the details regarding producing networks. So we can have other methods in here on the factory, for example, like get network names, and it could return all of the names of the network, but we're not going to do anything fancy. All we want is one method that allows us to get a network with its name, the network's name being passed into the method. And so inside of here is where the wait reinitialization will happen. And you can see here that we're going ahead and we're setting the manual seed. That way, each time we call this get network method with the network as the name, we're going to get the same network back because we're using manual seed here. And then this is just a sequential model, the same sequential model that we've been working with throughout the course. So then the next thing that we're going to have to do is go ahead and change the way that we were setting up our run configurations. So here, instead of passing the keys in for the network, we're going to pass in a string of names. So in this case, we just want to work with the network that has the name network. And then inside of our run loop, we're going to get rid of the dictionary. We're not going to access the network from the dictionary anymore. Instead, we're going to call the network factory. And we're going to call the get network method. We're going to pass in the network name. And then we will have generated a network from the factory. And then the next step is just to actually do this inside the run loop. So this is just what it's going to look like here, what we just went over. And then inside the run loop, we're going to, for each run, we're going to initialize our network using the factory. And so as you can see, what this is going to do is each time we call get network, we know that we're getting a newly initialized network, and that's going to have a fresh set of weights, which is going to allow us to compare the same network given multiple runs. So let's jump over to Jupyter Notebook now and look at the results. Okay, so down, fixing the issue. So in the notebook here, we have our factory. And then here we have our additional learning rate, and we've swapped out for the keys. We swapped out using the dictionary keys. Instead, we're using strings. And then here we actually make the call to the factory. And then let's take a look at our results. So we have for run 1, we got up to about 86% accuracy. And then once we start run 2, we can see that the accuracy jumped back down. And that's due to the fact that we have now reinitialized the weights on each run. So what this allows us to do is to go ahead and put as many networks as we want inside the factory. And then we can do as many runs as we want with those networks to test them out to see which ones perform the best. And then we can see over here, we know which network we're using because we have the name in this column.